if you have a roof over your head with a full stomach and know where your food is coming from tomorrow, safe with your family, you have achieved all of this world has to offer. بس خلاص.
Awesome. Welcome to another episode of Talks with T. Today I'm super pumped to have Hattem Mattar, the brainchild behind Mattar Farms, but also, and most importantly, friends since 1997.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
You were like a big brother. I mean, you still are like
Allah khalik, man. I remember that relationship. Yeah.
You protected me from the bullies. Yeah. So let it be on the let me be on the record.
No, but when you came, I remember. First of all, thank you for having me. And like it's cool that we get to hang out like this as adults, and I use adults in quotations. Yeah. But I remember when you came, you were one of the Arab kids. Remember ASD back in the day didn't have a lot of Arab. It was me, you, Ragad, Mukhaymar, Shandon, a few other Arab, and we were like. There was 5 of us.
Yeah, we were like the minority.
You know, but you were one of the Arab kids, and I'm not saying this because you're here, but you were one of the Arab kids that was Arabic speaking. You were principled, and you're like, no, I'm not doing this. I don't do this. I don't do that. And I was like, yeah, bring this kid.
You're like, you know what Jumu'ah prayer is? Come over here.
Yeah. I was like, we're gonna look out for this kid. Nobody talked to I swear to God. Anyways, yeah, but
and you were a runner, but you were in the.
I was swimming and track and field. And I wanted to do wrestling, but my dad was like, "You're flying more than you are attending school. So I'm sending you away to EMAC swimming, and then I'm sending you away to EMAC track and field. I'm not sending you away to another activity. Pick 2." I'm like, "All right, fine." Those were my 2 sports.
Not traditional Arab sports, though.
Swimming, yes, and running, I would say yes. But they were, my ex-wife, God bless her. We were in an argument one time. And she's like, "Do you know why you're such a..." Can we swear on the show?
Yeah, you can.
I was like, "Do you know why you're such a shitty husband?" I'm like, "No, actually."
I didn't know I was until you mentioned it right now.
Enlighten me. She's like, "You never played any team sports." And I was like, because, when I was swimming, I was MVP. Yeah. I was swim team captain, track and field, same thing. You know what I mean? And I was class president or school president. Remember? And, all the bad stuff aside, but like whatever I did, epitome, hyper top level. But I did realize, and I hope she never listens to this, but I was like...
I hope she does.
I hope she doesn't. But I was like, that's such a weird thing. I'm like, whatever. Anyways, I got in the car, switched on the music, ripped it down Sheikh Zayed Road, came back very happy. But I didn't think about what she had said until now as a grown-up. And I'm like, man, when you play an individual sport... like track and field, you're depending only on yourself. So when you're swimming, you're only depending on yourself. Yeah. So when you do function in a team environment and someone lets you down, you're like, why? You know what I mean? And you give them a really hard time. Whereas people that have played team sports, someone passes them the ball, they miss. That happens a lot, so you get used to it. But as a grown-up now, playing team sports like culinary or like, all of these other things, and something goes wrong, you're like, trying to do everything yourself, which is impossible. But also you have to learn to give people length and breadth to make mistakes, and that it is okay to miss the penalty shot or the 3-pointer at the buzzer that goes off the rim. Team sports, if that was the deciding factor, the whole team doesn't punch the guy that missed that shot. You know what I mean? I'm learning that as an adult, so she was right, but I hope she never hears this.
How about at home? Were you the eldest sibling who carried a lot of responsibility? Like how did that manifest itself in a home setting?
My dad was here for 3 months. You hung out with him.
Yeah.
So you saw Abu Hattem. Yeah. Abu Hattem was the quintessential hard dad on the eldest son. Yeah. Like just any cliche like Arab dad stuff, he did it. Yeah. And because it's cliche because all Arab dads did it, so I didn't grow up any different. But, you have to be a doctor or you have to be an engineer. This is your curfew, no girlfriends, all of that stuff. And because that's all they knew, and that was the right way to raise kids back in the day. But he used to say, which was weird, you saw him. You asked him, remember? At Al Sakal, you're like, Uncle, what do you think of all of this? He's like, well, I did this.
It's like his first barbecue was with me.
Was with me. So he was like, you don't work hard enough when I was a teenager, a shitty teenager. And I'm like, man, that was not, academics is not, I was really good. I got in ASD, I had the school record for detentions. I was school president, and I had the third highest SAT score in the school. I got a 1320 when it was still out of 1400 or 1600. 1600. I got a 1320, which was under Michael Seiler. Remember Michael Seiler? And one person. And the teachers were like, what? Because I graduated with like a 2.7 or like a 2.2. So it's just a shitty, my academics I could do with my eyes closed. And which frustrated my dad and the teachers. Like I got all of my AP scores and all that. They're like, just why don't you, what was the word on my report? Allah, know what alik. They're like, Hattem Mattar does not apply himself. You apply yourself. You know what I mean? But he gave me grief for not working hard enough. And then he saw me on the grind here. 3 restaurants, Al Sirkal, the catering company, events, His Highness, palaces, I don't know what. We flew to Riyadh together. We did a supper club for 3 days. We flew back, the kids, the farm, the dogs, all of that stuff. And he's like, Hattem, please sit down. And I'm like, oh man, here it is. And he's like, I have to tell you something. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you will never succeed like this. And I'm like, why? He's like, you are working too hard. I'm like, what? What do you want from me? You know what I mean?
Like, all I want is for you to love me.
What do you want from me? Like when I was young, I wasn't working hard enough. And now I'm working too hard. So, but Arab dads are Arab dads, you know?
Yeah. But it's interesting because no matter how old you get, your father's always going to be your father, your mother's always going to be your mother,
big
no matter,
time, big time.
You're like, I'm a grown-ass man with like a family.
Yeah. But, and like he's still like, when my mom's over, she's like, شيل الزرعة من هنا المفروض تبقى هنا. I'm like, okay. You know, and my dad's like, رتب البتاع دي لا عايزين محتاجين حاجات في البيت. And I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? حاضر. That's it. That's it. We were raised to say حاضر, which I don't think was wrong, by the way.
And I think the thing that really made me realize that my parents will always be my parents is when I came back and I stayed with them after university. And when I'd leave my house, my dad's like, what time are you coming home? Who are you going with?
You're like, I've been going out for 4 years without you checking on me.
You don't know who I'm going with, what time I'm coming, if I'm coming home.
Yeah. My dad, so university, as soon as I showed up, this was 2001. Okay, not a lot of Arab kids. Show up to university. I'm the Egyptian guy, the token Egyptian guy. All the white girls like, oh my god, he looks so nice. So anyways, meet this girl. She comes to hang out, and she does my answering machine for when we still had landlines. So the answering machine went exactly like this. Thank you for calling the office of Double T Enterprises, because Hattem Double T, Mattar Double T. That was my business. By the way, that's the name of the company now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So thank you for calling Double T Enterprises. Mr. Mattar is not available at the moment, but if you leave your name and number, I'll have him call you back. Thank you and have a nice day. Yeah? This is like 4th day of university. You know when the light blinks on when you've got a message? So I pick it up, I put in the code. You have one new message. Then it gets silence for like the first 5 seconds. And then it's like, hello, Mr. Mattar. This is Mr. Mattar. كلمني يا كلب. So I was like, oh shit. So he calls me, and I call him, and I'm like, yes, Pop? And he's like, who's that on the phone? I'm like, it's a girl. He's like, how did she get in your room? And I was like, عادي. He's like, where are the people that check this stuff? I'm like, there isn't. He's like, we made a mistake. Come home now. You know what I mean? And I remember,
it's like your sister is not going to university.
I remember him like, what do you mean? There's nobody checking like girls and guys mixing and like coming into university. I'm like, no, there isn't that. He's like, this is a disaster. You know what I mean? So yeah, I know our parents will always be our parents, but I think we are, as third culture kids, I think our parents, yours as well, by the way, mashallah, and a few other people in our school did a really good job of giving us strong Arab roots. And then giving us the freedom to figure out that outside the Arab world there is this education. Outside the Arab world, these are the extracurriculars that you can do. This is the place where you can excel, but never forget where you came from. You know what I mean?
So we haven't actually introduced what you do.
Yeah. I want to specify something. I'm not Mattar Farms anymore. That company doesn't belong to me, even though I founded it and started it with my bare hands.
Yeah.
Still have the bullet holes to prove it. But that company belongs to the investors that invested with me.
Okay.
So the Mattar family is not actually part of Mattar Farms anymore.
Okay.
The name of the company now is just Mattar.ae.
Okay.
And I can't take that because that's my last name.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
So how, if somebody says, what do you do?
If somebody, well, it's still happening now. They're at 2 events now pretending to be me.
No, you as Hattem.
Yeah, what about it?
What do you do?
Oh, what do I do? I am one of the top 10 live fire chefs in the world. I say that comfortably, mashallah. You say mashallah when you hear this. If you're listening, say mashallah.
And if you don't know what that is, knock on wood.
And yeah, exactly. There you go.
So we've talked about how our Arab parents are. It's not a traditional route to take. Plot the journey in a...
So super quick for all of the listeners. Graduate, get a degree in computer science because my father made me do it, which was horrible because I sucked at it.
Yeah.
But
it was probably the least of all the evils, right? Like you could have gone to a doctor,
no,
could have been a lawyer.
Yes, but like you can tell, obviously, you and I can talk, and we could probably do this without the mics or the cameras from now until tomorrow. So I'm a talker, and I was a really good linguist. The only reason I got so high on my SATs was because I didn't get a single question wrong in English. And then my math sucked, big time. It was below average, actually. So that being said, he saw that. I wanted to be a lawyer. And my dad's like, never. Because in Egypt, lawyers are like, you know what I mean?
Fair.
So anyways, computer science degree, worked at IBM, then I did Western Union, then I did 3 businesses in GE when you had just joined as well. So we actually worked together for a little bit of time. So did GE, then I did UTC, which was the GE's competitor. Then I did GDF Suez, the world's largest energy company. And all of this stuff was always the same role but different jargon. I'm a people person, so they just taught me what they were selling, and I sold it. And at my last company, shout out to Shawcor, baby, and they actually changed the name. I swear to God, wallah azim, I'm not making this up. Sometimes I think I'm in a movie. So I left Shawcor. I was their most successful salesperson, before I left. I had the Aramco account, and that was just cash money. They just recently spun off and sold the company. Do you know what they changed the name to? Wallah al-azim, I'm not making this up. You can look this up. Mattar. Mattar, M-A-T-T-R. I swear to God, I'm not making... I was like... When that happened, I'm like, what? And they changed it to be a materials company, so Matter, M-A-T-T-E-R. But that's super close to my
close.
Man, that's 1 letter difference. Anyways, the director... MashaAllah. So corporate, Houston, had brisket for the first time, flew with brisket back into my suitcase. Really embarrassing, always getting stopped at the border, dogs barking at me in Houston Airport and George Bush International Airport, people thinking I was smuggling drugs, me telling them I swear to God it's only meat, having the same thing happen here. I'm like, you know what, I'm a self-respecting member of society and don't want to get arrested. So I started making it myself. It's a big piece of meat. Yeah, go ahead.
Talk about that first brisket experience.
It was just like I'd never had anything before like it in my life. And when you I know from the reaction on people's faces from when we started doing it, people close their eyes when they take their first bite. You know, legit. Like there's a physiological reaction. People are like, they take the bite and they're like, you know? And so that happened to me, and I'm like, man, that's a good feeling. You know, it's like there's a hit of dopamine. So I started doing that here in the city, halal drug dealing. And then
kneeling and
big
wheeling.
time, wheeling and dealing, man, and giving people tastes of it, and people would come back and have it. And then we went from
you're skipping some critical points.
Say
there's a step that happens between this is really good brisket. To I'm going to start feeding people brisket.
So
why did you feel compelled?
It was not by accident, but it was like, I hate the word organic, but people started. So I lived in a place called the Mattar Farm because I have chickens, ducks, rabbits. This season we've got a zebra and a donkey in the house.
This is all in your
in my house. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So I live on a place called the Mattar Farm. Legally, I'm not allowed to say it, but deuces, you're not recording. It's not whatever. Anyways, man, come say it to my face.
It's not really a farm. It's your house that you've installed a farm.
Yeah, right. So it just happens to be a farm. So instead, yo, I'm going to tease. What are you doing this weekend? Yo, I'm going to the Mattar Farm. But it's got a name. So people would have barbecue at it and then tell their friends, bro, I had brisket at the Mattar Farm. Like, give me the guy's number. And so they thought it was a restaurant that they were calling when they called me to say, bro, can we order brisket? I'm like, man, this is my house. They're like, yeah, okay, but can you order brisket anyway? And I'd be like in an ad hoc meeting with Dr. Sultan. And my phone is ringing off the hook. And I'm like, Dr. Sultan, just 1 second. Hello? They're like, bro, 2 pounds of wings, 1 brisket. What? You know what I mean? Anyways,
so you're still juggling your job.
Bro, I did both jobs. Allah al-Azim. It cost me a lot, by the way. Like, all kidding aside, it cost me in my marriage. It cost me, I mean, that's a lot of other things, but it cost me my friends. It cost me my athletic career. It cost me time, sleep. It cost me a lot. But I was doing both. And both of them were full-time jobs. So I had my Bruce Wayne during the day, which was paying Monster Bank, a couple of cars in the garage, nice house. People would show up and be like, bro, brisket's doing really well. I'm like, bro, this is oil and gas money. This is not food money. You know what I mean? And I was doing Bruce Wayne during the day and saving people with brisket at Batman at night. And
this is it, like during the week. It's not just the weekend.
Bro, every day of my life from September 15th, 2015, 9/15, 2015, professionally, but before I perfected it in 2014, until November 2022. I was doing both.
Crazy.
Can you imagine?
Crazy.
Yeah. So the Bruce Wayne was being less and less, and the Batman was being more and more. And one time, my boss saw me on CNN. Wallah al-Azim. Called me from the airport in Italy. He was in Malpensa. And he called me and he's like, Hattem, why are you on CNN? And I'm like, oh.
So he wasn't aware that you're a pitmaster?
No, nobody knew, man. I was the general manager for the region. There was nobody above me here. I was top dog. And I reported into Houston and Holland. So when the cat was out of the bag, they're like, what? When did you have time to do this? You know what I mean? Because alhamdulillah, I was successful at my job, which is why I kept on getting promoted, and I was doing this. So everything was super high performance, and they both relied on the same skill set, which is people.
I go back to the question: why did you feel like there's something here, and I want to pursue it because it definitely had, like you said, a cost. Yeah.
Do you know the Arabic word like ilham?
No.
Ilham is inspiration from God.
Okay.
Right? Alhamak. You know, like that you were. There's not a lot of things that I took to really quickly. Right? I had to put in the effort. Barbecue was one of these things where after I got it, I was just like, you know. And I make this analogy comfortably. I don't mean it in a pretentious or a prideful way, but Gretzky knew he was Gretzky at a young age. Jordan knew he was Jordan at a young age. When I picked up barbecue, I was like, I'm going to be the Jordan of barbecue. You know what I mean? I'm going to be the Dave
Chappelle. There was no doubt in your mind. It just clicked.
It happened. Like it was, people were like older people that know barbecue, and then chefs that I was feeding in the city were like, where did you go to culinary school? I'm like, Satwa, bitch. You know what I mean? I didn't go to culinary school. So it was the affirmation of other people that I looked up to, and the influx of capital from clients was like, maybe I'm good at this. You know? You've always got that imposter in you, like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But it wasn't. It was other people telling me I was good, and then me finally believing it, and then, you know, hitting the turbo button.
And why did you juggle both for seven years?
You know from us working together, Dubai is expensive. The paycheck from being the general manager, vice president of an oil and gas gig, man, I miss that. Oh jeez, Ya Rabbi, Ya Rab, it's Friday. Ya Rab, an oil and gas paycheck, please, in hospitality.
You know, my where I live now, I look out onto the Internet City GE office.
yeah.
So I literally, that's my morning view. So there's days where I'm like, so happy I left you, sucker. And there's days like, I miss your safety. I miss your end of the month.
I still see Ammi Nabil, and I shake hands with him. We catch up. But two kids in school, 2 kids in private school. And all of life's expenses, I needed the paycheck big time. You know what I mean?
And then what gave you the conviction to say, actually, what did you learn in that period of doing both? About yourself, about how to run your own entrepreneurial endeavor?
You know what? I learned during that time that the effort you put in, literally and figuratively, into something doesn't necessarily mean success, right? Because you could grind all day trying to chase a customer, whether it's, AdNoc or PDO or Aramco or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if they don't have budget, you know what I mean? You're not going to be a successful salesperson. Yeah. I learned to sallim amri. You know what that means? I just learned to submit in the philosophical sense and in the Islamic sense. Salam, which is Islam, you know what I mean? And I was just like, man, I'm gonna do my best, and if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, please, give me a sign. And we say, if you want to translate this into like a physical example, when we were kids, remember how you used to tune the radio by turning the dial, right? You would never turn up the volume on the shawshara that was next to the channel. If the channel was 104.4, right? At 104.3, you could kind of hear the song, but it was still scratchy. You never turned up the volume then, or after at 104.6. So you had to find the radio station first, and then when you find the radio station, as soon as and your song was on, man, you cranked it all the way up. So I learned that there was no point in putting in effort on 104.3. This isn't a plug for whatever the channel is, you know what I mean? But I learned first you got to find your radio station, right? And then when you find that radio station, man, don't even turn it all the way up. Go get the sound system that'll shatter the windows in the neighborhood, then turn it up. So I learned you got to find your radio station first, you know?
And you had found it, and you were juggling, I guess, kind of 2 things for other reasons. What was the point at which you're like,
they finally, I was too much in public for it to be a quiet thing that I was doing on the side. They finally figured it out, and they're like, you're fired. And I'm like, man, thank you so much for putting up with me all this time. I'd love to have you at the restaurant when you come. And they're like, yeah, screw you, we're not doing that. But they came, all 3 of my bosses. No way. I swear, Allah al-Azim, and in sequence. And they came to the restaurant. One of them was Texan, and he was the guy, I've got a picture of it, remind me to send it to you. The guy that interviewed me for the job and then took me out for brisket actually came, Wallah al-Azim, I'm not making it up, came to eat at timeout. Okay, so he's the reason for all of it, right? By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was the in. And he came to eat, and he's Texan. And he ate, I made him the tray, and he sat down in front of 3 other people that were just there hanging out. He's like, if you came to Texas, you'd be top 3 Texas barbecue. And I'm like, Lazim, I wanted to flip the table and just throw deuces up to everybody, you know what I mean? But
So it was a mutual agreement that...
No, it wasn't. Man, I didn't want to give up that paycheck. Okay. I was still happy having no life, no friends, nothing. I was happy because the paycheck was security. And I was still doing it for fun. And I wasn't really looking at how much money we were making or the business side of things, cost of operation, all of that stuff. I was doing it because I loved it. And at the beginning, when I started, I did it almost for 1.5 years for free. I was giving out brisket for free because I was still working on things. When it turned into a business, then I was like, now I have to be a restaurateur. And people were asking me stuff like, what is the activity-based cost of your barbecue sauce? And I'm like, yo, man, I've never met you before. If you say anything about my mom again, I'm going to punch you right in the face. I have no idea what you're asking. Like, what the hell is this, But the professional side of restauranting is super hard. Super hard. And I don't think if you're not a hospitable person, don't get into hospitality. It's not a quick buck at all.
How do you find your radio station? I think a lot of people go through life.
It's a good question, man.
They're just grinding, right?
That could be like a 7-hour conversation. But my thing is, humbly to anybody that is looking for their radio station, are you your own customer? If you work for a company, right, whether it's corporate, maybe like if you're an oil and gas company, you're not the guy buying the oil, but are you the customer of the product that or lifestyle or thing that you are doing 40 hours a day? You know what I mean? If you work for a beef company and you're vegan, or you're the other way around, you know what I mean? Or flexitarian. If you're a health nut but working for the tobacco company, if you're, you know what I mean? Are you your own customer? Do you believe in your 40-hour grind, right? And if the grind wasn't paying you, would you still do it? It's hard because there's so many things like accounting and all of these things that, fine, I'm not going to do accounting if nobody pays me. Like, this isn't my hobby. But you have to find something that you do not for the fun of it. Not for the money, but for the fun of it. And there's an adage that says, which is totally wrong, by the way. They say, if you love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. But the polar opposite is true, because if you love what you do, man, if you're a professional athlete, you're going to do strength and conditioning during the day and it's going to suck. Then you're going to do cardio. Then you're going to do technique. None of that is fun, right? But because you enjoy doing it, it passes. But imagine you were doing that and it wasn't your thing. You're not going to be the top of what you're doing. If you're doing the thing for the money, you're never going to be the best, because you won't put in the extra time if you're not paid, right? 100%. If you can find something that doesn't pay you, but the last 15 minutes before you sleep that's what you're thinking of, and when you wake up in the morning, you're like, man, what if I did this? The first 15 minutes when you wake up, whatever that thing is for you, do that.
Easier said than done. When you have responsibility.
Yes, right? Man, you're preaching to the choir.
Do you think you did it the right way? Juggling both? Because sometimes, I'll talk to people in a corporate gig and like, if I wasn't in this gig, I would start this. And me, my two co-founders, Brian Habibi and my brother Talan, we were all doing similar to you. We were doing both.
And you guys were good at that, by the way.
We were doing both and doing it at the same time. And so I think there's this conception that if I had the perfect environment, then this is what I'd do. So I guess my point is, you could potentially find your radio station even and transition into it. You don't necessarily need to drop everything.
No. If you are willing to pay the price of your 40-hour work week is now 80, literally, by the way. You get up in the morning and you got to be at the office at 9, but you're getting up at 6 to get in 3 hours of whatever you're doing, your website, your strength and conditioning, your marketing, your fulfilling orders, whatever it is. You're going to sacrifice your time, right? There's 24 hours in the day, and most of the time there isn't enough hours in the day. But I don't recommend dropping everything. And the other thing is, we were blessed, you and I, and our generation, even though I'm older than you, but we were blessed with the scarcity of people doing new things. So there was the novelty, the first kite surfer, remember? The first jiu-jitsu fighter, the first pro rider, the first, you know what I mean? Like, we grew up X Games, Tony Hawk, all of that stuff, right? And then because of the internet, everyone is now doing everything. Everyone is a yogi. Everyone is a health nut. Everyone is a strength and conditioning coach. Everyone is a life coach. Jesus. You know what I mean? So finding your radio station now, when you get there, you'll find, when you get to whatever the frequency is, and I mean frequency in the literal and figurative sense, by the way, there is an energy component to it. And I mean physiologically, I don't mean in the like Mercury is in retrograde batikh. I actually mean your brain is electrical, right? When they do the ECG on your heart and all of that stuff, when you're successful and happy at what you're doing, your brain operates at a higher electrical frequency when you're happy versus when you're sad.
And people can feel that energy, which is just a manifestation. Can
you feel it now?
100%.
You know what I mean? We're doing the thing that we love, and we have a relationship. But what was I saying?
We were talking about not dropping everything to find your radio station.
Oh, no. Now, when you get to your radio station, you'll find that there's 500 radio stations at 104.4.
Yeah.
So now your thing is, do you stay in the same place and do that and take 1% of a 360-degree pie? Or do you find something else? It's crowded. It's red ocean. There's a lot of sharks eating.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people making burgers. There's a lot of people selling phone covers in Satwa.
Yeah.
Do you go out and make an indestructible phone cover? Instead of it being 200 dirhams, it's 600 dirhams.
Yeah.
But it's got a mag light on it and it's traceable and then all of a sudden you're blue ocean?
Yeah.
Or are you content with the 3 or 5% from doing the same thing that everybody's doing? It's tough these days.
Yeah, yeah. Or, you know, another component is, do you feel that you can do what everyone's doing better, which I guess is what you're trying to say.
But better is relative. Like, better is, man, the phone game, right? iPhone isn't the best phone by a country mile.
Yeah.
The Chinese phones are making cameras that can make you see who is living on the moon if you zoom in strong. You know what I mean? The Samsung phone blows the Apple phone out of the water in terms of compatibility. You want to transfer stuff. But who is the best-selling phone on the planet?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So being the best is not necessarily the name of the game.
Yeah.
You could be, there's a lot of bad food out there that just gets a lot of really good press and they're commercially successful. Being the best is relative.
Yeah.
You don't know what the criteria for best is anymore.
No. 7 years juggling both. What would you have done differently?
You know, I don't have any regrets, all of that stuff that people say.
Yeah, but it's about learning.
Yeah, I don't think where I am today, I would do anything different, despite the fact that I lost the company and the money in the bank and the trademark and the name and all of that stuff. I am now the proprietor of my own company, Double T Enterprises, right? That I imagined when I was a kid, right? Back then, I had partners, and partnership is hard. Now, I still have partners in the other ventures that I do, but I wouldn't do anything differently. I am where I am now. There's like what if this accident didn't happen? What if I had signed this paperwork? What if? None of that stuff is productive in thinking about, right? Unless you draw a conclusion from it. You watch the tape, some guy thrown every time after the jab, he throws the left hook. So you watch it. And then you know, after the jab, he throws the left hook, so you slip it and throw a hook back. Unless you're doing something like that in retrospect to learn, then I love all I don't want to say love. I appreciate all of my mistakes and I treat them as lessons and not losses.
Yeah, and those lessons is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
What are those lessons that you've pulled into?
Man, that's
sounds like there's personal lessons. It sounds
no, and they both. Man, can I tell you? Everything we do is personal, by the way, right? When you were at your corporate job, the reason you were good is because of the personal connections you had to the people you were dealing with. So, imagine you are selling whatever, think of a great product, Arabian horses. But لما بتخش into the majlis ما تسلم. And when you're in the majlis, you're on your phone and you're texting and you're not, even though your horse is, no one's going to buy from you. So I believe really, really strongly that the personal element is what makes or breaks anything on the planet. Marriage, business, athleticism, name it. Just name me any human facet. It is the person behind the facet that makes it incredible, right? But the personal lesson is, there was a time where shaking somebody's hand was the deal. You know, shahama al-Arabiya, you know? And shahama in general, chivalry. You know, and they used to say this when we were kids. They're like, oh, chivalry is not dead. 80s, 90s. I think there's no chivalry anymore. You know, you can be brave and call somebody out on the internet and never have the consequence of saying it to that guy's face and getting decked in the mouth for not, you know, not being a real man. You know what I mean?
Up for what you believe.
And I think people, the digital world has erased the consequences of some people's words and things, and the business these days and lawyers and all of these things has eliminated I guess the shahama of, man, I shook your hand and we're in business together, and we've been to each other's houses and know each other's. I would say now, shake everybody's hand, but sign the paperwork first.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned that sometimes there's this imposter syndrome, which comes to all of us.
Everybody.
When they pulled kind of the golden cuffs out from
I like that, the golden cuffs. I like
cuffs
that.
Off your arms.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, now this is what I'm doing for real. What's kind of the self-talk?
So the self-talk is you, and I tell the girls this, I tell my daughters this. You have to know that you are you personally in life, in everything, whatever you're doing, Nobody wakes up in the morning, looks in the mirror and says, oh man, you're a piece of shit, and then goes out to be successful, right? So you have to know and say this to yourself, look yourself dead in the eye every morning, girl or boy, whatever you're doing, that you are infinitely great. But, giant but, capital, bold, italics, but not greater than anyone else. You know what I mean? So I think, I hate using the word I always say we, but I think I'm one of the best live fire chefs in the city, right? But when I'm hanging out with the other chefs and they're saying stuff like yuzu, gel, rice foam, tricolor, I'm, what? I have no idea what you're talking about, you know what I mean? So I know in my domain, I'm the greatest. But in the larger Venn diagram domain, not greater than anyone else. You know what I mean? So the imposter syndrome is not an imposter. They can't do what I do, right? And I can't do what they do. And you have to know the limitations of your Venn diagram. There's an intersection with some things, right? The long distance runner is not a sprinter. The sprinter is not a long distance runner. So it's not that you're bad at stuff. A fish can't fly and the bird can't swim. So are you the best fish? Are you the coolest seagull? Whatever it is. You have to figure out what your thing is and then tell yourself, this is what I want to be and this is how good I am. And then run with that. If you're trying to be, which sometimes we do, the best chef and the best fighter and the best dad and you end up, your bandwidth is only this much. You end up using it and being mediocre at everything. You got to pick one thing and do it really well.
How do you do that when you have other things that you also need to manage, like family?
There's a longer conversation about bandwidth here. Back in the day, this is, by the way, physiologically speaking, your brain has a certain amount of computing bandwidth per day, just like a computer, okay? Back in the day, before there was all of this input, your brain had computing power left at the end of the day, stuff to do. But now we wake up, first thing you do, check your phone. That's input. So your brain's already on from 7 a.m., okay? In between the ride home and the ride to work, you're listening to a podcast, Talks with T. You know what I mean? Then you're at work 8 hours a day. Then on the way home, you're texting. Your brain actually uses up, in this day and age, on the average, your brain uses all of its computing power by 3 p.m. So critical thinking and creativity and all of the things that you actually need in life are done by midday. On the bandwidth side of things, you literally have to prioritize. Mental bandwidth, physical bandwidth, time bandwidth, right? All three of those things. I don't even know if people use bandwidth as a term anymore.
It's still applicable.
It's still applicable, yeah. But you have to decide. Your day is 24 hours. How much do you want to sleep? 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours? None, right? You've got family. Are you going to spend 1 hour? Are you going to do, what's it called? Bedtime? Are you going to do the drive to school? Are you going to hire a bus? Your athletic career. Are you still trying to go semi-pro? Are you trying to be the baddest guy in the gym? Are you trying to be the best guitarist in the band? Whatever it is, you have to put that stuff on a list, and it's only you. Then, how does that list draw out? If you say, yeah, I want to be the best at this, and then your missus is like, I'm sorry, what? No, you're not doing that. We're doing this, and this. You're like, oh. And you've got to factor that in. Then your list changes. So it's a question of, the equation is priorities times or minus, I don't know if it's times or minus, actually. We should talk about that philosophically. Priorities times capabilities equals results or excellence or whatever it is. But
it's probably divided by.
I think divided by, yes, man. See? That's why you were the GE boy. Priorities divided by capabilities. Yeah, that's it. It is divided.
Now
Nice,
I get that.
bro.
You could have been a 1600 if you got that.
Yeah, you see, well, 800 and then 520, whatever it was. Yeah, 520, which was a disaster.
All this kind of comes when you look at it in retrospect. Is that how you manage your life today? Are you very intentional about how you manage your life?
100%. 100%.
So you're very conscious of saying no to things, yes to things.
100%. 100%. If I had my way, if some private equity company, private equity, holla at your boy.
Yeah.
Some private equity company came to buy out the IP that is Mattar.
Yeah.
You know, the cooking school, the talks, the books, the recipes, the sauces. And my day was a regular, like I had my time, I'd wake up, jits, right? And before jits, hang out on the farm, go for a ride on the horses, pick whatever is fresh, you know what I mean? Hang out with the girls, take them to school, middle of the day, whatever the next priority on the list is, finish the library. Have you been to the house?
No, I haven't.
The library, probably the size of this wall. And there's books in it that keep adding up that I want to read.
Yeah.
And I write very frequently. Yeah. But there's so many ideas in books that are unsaid and unread because there's not enough time in the day. So I actually have, it's not with me, I've written what the ideal day is in the beginning of a new journal. And this is what I'd like to do. But it would be the girls, the farm, my athletic career, right? Literature, my athletic career again, the girls, home. But in real life, it is the polar opposite.
And if that's what your idea of, it sounds like that's what your idea of success is, how do you keep the fuel in the engine going when the picture looks slightly different?
You have a semblance of that because you're self-employed. Yeah. I get to go to jiu-jitsu at 10 o'clock in the morning, right? And then if I didn't have dinner service, I could go to jiu-jitsu at 7. And then I've got the girls on the weekend and we could go wherever we want, whenever we want. You know what I mean? So you have a semblance of the life that you want to live. And the house I live on now and the philosophy of what I'm doing now is, man, in real life, and you hold me to this, 5 years from now, the farm is going to be open to everyone. It's going to be not for profit. We're not going to anything that people want to contribute to dinner. We're going to cook what's coming from the farm. It's probably not going to be here because we don't have the produce or the weather for it. But I'm living the life that I envision I will live when I have the money on a smaller scale now. I don't know if I make it to 60. Allahu Alam. I don't know if I make it to tomorrow. You know what I mean? But for now, I'm living my dream on a much smaller scale. And then every day, that dream, Wallah Azim, just one step bigger. One more chicken. You know what I mean? 2 more corn plants. A few more days with the girls. You know what I mean? And if you do that, and you hold yourself accountable day by day, and this is what I was talking about. Somebody asked me, I had a post this time last year, said I was struggling when I was like mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, everything, crisis of faith, and I was just like, maybe this isn't my thing, man. I'd lost everything, and it was March, and I was like, you know what, Wusa, just tomorrow. The step in front of me, whatever's happening that day, if I have to figure out how to improve this sandwich that I'm making, it's just going to be that sandwich. That one does well. Then the next day, can I improve another sandwich? The step in front of you. People are like, well, how are you going to get the company back and where are you going to get the money? And this is hundreds of steps down the road. I'm aware of those things, but I still haven't gotten to that thing, right? So I say, every day, you wake up in the morning, take the step in front of you, right? Not oblivious to the perils and the breaks in the road and the dangers of the road ahead, right? Just that step, one step. Thousands of miles down the road, like you and I, we were 18 once, then we were 24. Thousands of miles down the road. If you do it like that, Where did the time go? Do you remember where the time went? Right?
clue.
But it's gone.
Yeah.
You'll look back
Yeah.
successfully at all of the stuff you've done, past all of the trials and tribulations and things that were going to stand in your way, that you thought were going to stand in your way, and the only thing you did was take the step in front of you today.
And I think a lot of stress, anxiety, this feeling of things are out of control come from our perception of what the future may or may not hold.
And
right?
what control do you have over that?
Yeah, 100%. And actually, the present moment, no matter, I can speak for you and I, no matter what's happening in our life right now, we're still better off than 99.9% of people.
Bro, that's the Arabic saying. Are your listeners Arab or multinational?
Mix.
Maybe you translate this, but من بات في بيته آمنا. Okay? آمنا مع أهله عنده ميقات يومه فقد بلغ الدنيا وما فيها. Which is, if you have a roof over your head with a full stomach and know where your food is coming from tomorrow, safe with your family, you have achieved all of this world has to offer. بس خلاص.
Yeah. And so many times we layer in these expectations what happens if this future and what happens versus just enjoying what's happening now.
Not enjoying. There's people that compare themselves to people that have more than them and be like, Ya Rab, why don't I have this? But people don't do the other comparison to say,
It's true.
Grateful. I told this to somebody yesterday and it totally blew my mind. This summer I did the culinary tour with the UAE Embassy in Washington. His Excellency Yusuf Al-Otaiba was like, go tell these people about the Arab world through barbecue. And I was like, oh man.
How did something like that get set up?
Man, honestly, tawfiq. Like I was just really good at what I did. I was making American barbecue in the UAE. And so Dan Al-Marashi from the Cultural Diplomacy Department, she's like, we have to get you to the US and show people what you're doing with barbecue. So maybe I'll never get a world's 50 best. Maybe I never get a Michelin star. But none of those boys, shout out to those boys. I love what they do. You know, a lot of them are very impressive. But 62 cities, 100 days. And by the time I had finished the summer tea, I'd fed 17,000 people. Personally. Like not, you know what I mean? 17,000 people. I had an interaction with 17,000 people this summer. What was I telling you about the embassy? What was I saying about how that subject came up?
Why do I have a feeling this happens to you a lot?
Man, you know I'm ADD, like ADHD actually.
Oh, really?
And the only reason I can accomplish the stuff that my parents tried to like manage it, and I was always shitty. That's actually why I was shitty in school, and it was like a problem back in the day. But the only reason I can do what I do now, alhamdulillah wa fadlillah wa shukrullah, is because of my ADHD. I have the energy to carry myself through the day. I was a 40-year-old man. And then my brain is doing, this recipe needs adjustment while I'm talking to you. I know I'm going to be on ARN and I need to call the driver for the kids. And and it's just doing ding, 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 ding. But I don't remember why that came up.
We were talking about being appreciative and enjoying the present moment.
Yeah. So, man, props. So I was walking through Louisiana, okay? Saw a guy on the street, and I was still struggling. That trip, by the way, that trip, I was deciding whether to come back to the UAE or not.
Oh, wow.
I was going to leave because of how heartbroken I was with all of the losses. Actually, you know what? To be honest, I actually did say I gave up, and I told the kids that I was leaving. So that trip was like, if I didn't find the fire, literally and figuratively, to come back and do hospitality, I was going to move away from the city. Don't have access to Arab Mattar, number one. Hattem Mattar, the Mattar farm. All three of those things, with my name on them, I have zero access to them. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not coming back. But walking through Louisiana, you were talking about rida, which is to be grateful. It's more than grateful. Rida is more than gratitude. It's to be content. Anyways, I saw this guy, and he said he was on the ground on a cardboard box, no shirt. And he said, "How you doing, sir?" And I know he was looking for money. And I was like, "Man, I'm great. Thank you for asking. How are you?" And he looked at me, and I know maybe this is part of his shtick, but just in my mind that he could say something like this, and wallah al-azim, I felt he was genuine.
Yeah.
He looked up at me, T, and he was like, man, I'm blessed, man.
Yeah.
And I was like, man,
Yeah.
it's a mindset.
Yeah.
It's not what you have in the bank.
Yeah.
It's not what's parked in your garage.
Yeah.
It's not what you're sitting on at the house.
Yeah.
Are you radi,
Yeah.
right? With what you have, that's wealth. Just that, it's a mindset. And here the city is, whatever the superlatives are, Dubai is super, ultra, hyper, right? Whatever, what's after hyper? There isn't. But Dubai is that competitive. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
Super competitive, ultra competitive, hyper competitive. The one step after that, Dubai is that. And if you don't get on the ball, you're always second place or third place. But if you do get into that trap, you'll never be radi. You have to do both. You have to stay top of your game, but always be content with however far you got in the game that day.
Tough balance.
I know, man.
Tough
I
balance.
know, you're telling me.
Tough balance. What happened? I'm not familiar with the story.
With what?
With the whole Mattar farm.
We had a disagreement on the direction that the company should take.
Yeah.
And they were like, we want to scale back the family involvement in you posting about the girls and it being you. I said, man, no problem. We can scale that back on the other brand. And they wanted to do delivery, and they wanted to, expand in Riyadh, and it being dependent on me prevents the company from scaling. And I totally agreed with that.
Yeah.
But then the argument was, why don't we do it with the spin-off brand that we had at Time Out Market? They're like, no, it doesn't have any equity, the same as Mattar Farm. I said, well, it's my company. They're like, well, actually, no, it's not. It's just your name, but you're not on any of the paperwork. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to play it like that. And we disagreed big time and tried to resolve it. The two big brothers that I had kissed their forehead, said, guys, there's أكتر من كده ما بيننا بكتير. Let's agree. Because if I can't have it, by the way, you can't either. And don't call my bluff. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Please don't call my bluff.
Yeah.
So if I can't have it, I'm going to tell everybody that you took it.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
And, alhamdulillah, al-fadlillah, I banked on the community. They banked on the business.
Yeah.
And you know who came through? The community.
Yeah.
So it's a tough loss, though.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's a tough loss, but it sounds like you can teach someone like me about you are the brand.
No, but you know what, T, that I appreciate. First of all, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But that's a gimmick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What I mean by that is,
I don't want to be a gimmick.
What I mean by that is, you've been authentic.
Yeah.
You're being you.
Yes.
Right? And through that, you've developed authentic connection
100%.
with
I agree
with
with
the
that.
people
Yes.
who follow you, the people who root for you. And that's what I mean by Hattem Mattar, the guy from high school,
Yes.
is the brand, not some guy on
No,
Instagram.
not
you know,
100%. I appreciate that.
So what I mean is,
Thank you.
when there's authenticity,
Yeah.
then there's a real community that has pull.
Bro, we built a community
Yeah.
that turned into a business, not the
Yeah.
other way around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just having people over at the house.
Yeah.
Friends, then friends of friends, then our family friends, then the family friends of our friends.
Yeah.
And then it just was, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it turned into by accident.
Yeah.
And we banked on that when it was time to, guns drawn.
Yeah.
The Esquire boys came through.
Yeah.
The Time Out boys came through. Girls, actually. The Time Out girls came through. All of the food community pulled together. Everyone was like, yeah, we're not doing this anymore with them. And it was just literally everyone. I'm like, when you in the mafia movies, when someone goes,
Yeah.
and then everybody shows up,
Yeah.
and the other guy that thought he was fighting this one guy solo was like, oh man,
This back up.
happened in real life.
Yeah.
But I was really close to giving up. I couldn't handle having all three of those things that were like my lifeblood.
Yeah.
Me having my name on all of them.
Yeah.
But not in a proprietary sense, but like, this is why I'm alive, literally and figuratively. My children, my business.
Yeah.
I don't belong to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, Lord, I'm not a bad guy.
Yeah.
Don't deal drugs.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not a bad guy. This is tough for me. Please, tell me what you want me to do. I'm not I'm not built for more heartbreak. I've already been through it. It's hard. Yeah, you know, when you and I hung out in Croatia, I was just like, I can't handle any more heartbreak. Please tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. And I traveled, and I was like, if I can't put together the pieces of the pieces, Allah Azim, literally, if I can't put together the pieces of the pieces, you can have it, man. I'm gonna go be a barista in Sri Lanka or something. I can't be here anymore.
And what happened on that trip where you're like, actually, I am going back?
There's a documentary, inshallah, that's coming out that somebody followed. There was a film crew that followed me for the entire trip.
No way. So you were a Kardashian for like 3 months.
Yeah, but like Falah Kardashian, like sleeping on the street, you know what I mean? Almost arrested by the cops, you know? Like not that kind of Kardashian, no, the polar opposite actually. But just being able to do what I love for no money, you know what I mean? Yeah. Cooked in the most random place. Bro, I cooked in front of the White House. Yeah. And then slept on the street. Yeah. And then a cop comes up to me thinking I'm a bum. Yeah. I'm sleeping on butcher paper and there's a barbecue going. He's like, you can't be here, son. And I was like, what? I didn't know he was a cop. It was just somebody standing over me. I'm like, I'm working. He kind of like moves me with his foot. Yeah. And he's like, I said you can't be here. I'm like, man, I'm barbecuing. He's like, oh shit, can I have some? You know what I mean? It's just doing that, you know, like regular life away from the P&L, away from rent, away from, I told my team, I said, I don't want, and God bless my kid sister, she was running the company while I was gone. I said, unless something has gone disastrously wrong and they need to...
The restaurant's literally burned down.
Really, literally, Wallah al-Azim, and they need to arrest someone, I don't want to hear from you. Yeah. So I disappeared into the American wilderness and the urban jungle. I prayed in the most random places. Went hunting and cow wrangling with Republicans in Texas. Population 6,000, and like if a truck left, it would go 59999. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we got emotional saying goodbye to each other because we made this like connection. They were like, "Oh shit, Hattem, you're kind of cool." I get emotional kind of thinking about it, but I said to everybody, Louisiana, Texas, California was super cool because they're super liberal. So like California wasn't, I was blown away by the countryside, but I knew I would be welcome in California because California welcomes everybody. But we went to places where if I was not going delegated as something or someone, would not be welcome, bro. Yeah. You know what I mean? I look Arab. Yeah. I am. I could be Mexican. They're like, you're not welcome here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Republican signs on the back of their truck. Yeah. Big cardboard cutouts of Trump. Wallah azim, I'm not making this up. Yeah. I walk through the door and they're like,
we're going to eat barbecue from this guy?
What the fuck is this? Yeah. You know what I mean? But I said to everybody before I left, one of the guys saw me praying. And he's like, what's that? And I'm like, this is how we pray in the Islamic world. And he's like, what's on your wrist? And I'm like, it's like a rosary. It's like an Islamic rosary. And we spent the time cowboying together. When I was leaving, he's like, can I ask you a favor? Yes, sir. He said, can I have your rosary? I really like it. Yeah. It seems to bring you peace. Yeah. He says, it does. So I gave it to him. Yeah. And I said, I hope it brings you peace. And he says, I appreciate it. I said, can I ask you a favor? Yeah. Man, I get emotional thinking about this. I said, when I gave it to him, I said, I hope you come to our defense anytime anybody ever brings up the Islamic or Arab world. And I said our defense, not my defense. Yeah. And I don't know if it has, but I can imagine that when we said bye and he got emotional, he's like, I don't get emotional with this kind of shit. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, but I'm getting emotional now. You know what I mean? And we said bye. And I hope that the entire trip on the culinary diplomacy side of things, we left an impression on the people that when someone's like, oh, those fucking Arabs, somebody's going to get up and be like, you shut your mouth. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he comes to our defense with the rosary around his wrist, you know? Yeah. So just doing that was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Like, I just connected with so many people, and people were like, do you remember Brian and Chris Ahern?
Yeah, I do.
They came to Washington. No way. I got a picture. I got to show it to you. I was standing there. I was cooking, and Chris Ahern standing right in front of me. I'm like, what are you doing here? He's like, what are you doing here?
Oh, he had no idea.
No idea. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So Wallah azim, with the stuff that we did, I knew this is what I was supposed to be doing. Yeah. And if I could do it well abroad, why can't I do it well at home? Yeah. Yeah.
SubhanAllah, sometimes it's these things like you have to hit rock bottom sometimes, right?
You know,
you have to, and this thing that came out of nowhere
Yeah.
was what you needed at that moment in time, right?
But you know, there's the Cinderella man story, like, oh, you know, he hit rock bottom and then he rose to the thing. Real life is not the movies, man. Sometimes rock bottom can break you, and it does, and you're just like, nope, I'm not getting up again. Thank you very much. I'm just gonna hang out here. It's not glamorous. The grind and the heartbreak. It worked for me. Alhamdulillah wa fadlillah wa shukrillah. And I attribute everything I've done to God with tawfiq min rabbina. Being in the gas station and then having a lady that had a tire puncture that also happened to be the organizer of the event we were going to. That's not you, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever higher power you believe in, I believe in God. That's you being in the right place at the right time. That was orchestrated.
Yeah.
Now, because of you being in the right place, now it's up to you to do the work.
Yeah,
so I do the work every single time.
Yeah.
When I get the opportunity, there's a lot of people that call and say, Hattem, can you do this? And I cannot. I'm telling you. I'm like, yeah, no problem, man. I hang up the phone. I'm like, what?
What am I gonna do
now what?
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's up to you to do. It's up to you to grind. Sometimes the grind gets the better of you, and you have to admit that the grind got the better of me. And it's Wallah Azim, believe me, it's not glamorous. I don't like being sad. I don't like being alone. I don't like being lonely.
Yeah.
I don't like being. But now, because it worked out for me, it is a Cinderella story, and there's a nice story arc and stuff.
Here's my point: is that low?
Yeah.
You have a decision to make. Am I going to keep going or not?
Yeah.
And then when you decide to keep going, I'll tell you right now, there's more lows ahead.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so that's kind of what I'm talking about, which is the one thing that's predictable in life. This is what I've learned. I mean, last year was the toughest year of my professional career. Like we almost lost the company. Like we almost ran out of money. We got screwed over not once, not twice, 4 times by investors. So, but you know, during that time, I learned so much about myself, right? And now, like this year, whatever's happened so far this year, I'm like,
yeah, I could do it. Yeah, I could do it.
This little thing.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, through that process last year, I was like, you know what? The one thing that's guaranteed is there's going to be times that are good, there's going to be times that are bad, and so I just said it was the toughest year. It was the best year of my marriage last year.
Ajib, mashallah, because your wife was there for you.
Yeah, and just brought us closer together. And so what I said was, when I look back on it, I said there's going to be times externally that are going to be tough, and there's times that are going to be great. But it's up to me to decide how I feel.
Yes,
right,
100%.
And
how you react to the up and the down.
Yeah, and so am I going to look at it and say? So I came out, and then actually this podcast, talking to people like you, really taught me that it's my perception of what's happening outside of me that tells me how I'm going to feel, right? And so my point about that is, through that whole experience, you hit rock bottom, right? And now you know that when rock bottom comes again at some future point,
you're capable.
I'm able to do it, because you are going to hit something that's going to feel like rock bottom. That's guaranteed.
Yeah,
right?
And the martial arts side of my life teaches me a lot about submission and about giving up and about grinding and about, if you've been in this move before, right, in jiu-jitsu, and you lasted the extra 30 seconds or 40 seconds, when you hit the competition and somebody gets that move on you, it's from you knowing it in training that you're like, I'm not submitting to this, bro. This doesn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's other times where the guy gets your heel and it's going to cost you your knee.
Yeah.
And you're like, nope. I'm out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But knowing, exactly like you said, having the perception to know when is the time to fight or work, and when is the time, back foot, relax, take a step back, get some perspective. I say this from experience, like my humble experience, my limited experience. There's a lot of things that you can learn from what people consume every day: movies, books, shows. If you're watching them for entertainment purposes, great. You need to disconnect. But there's a lot of lessons from everything that is happening around us. And if you take the time to find out why Tommy Shelby is successful at what he does in Peaky Blinders and figure out his characteristics, you could use that, right? And if you watch whatever, the UFC show to find out what works for this guy in the stand-up game. If people use general life, they're however many hours awake they are, try and learn from that, they're better for it. But if you're just consuming for the sake of consuming, you're going to miss out on a lot. Are you taking notes for that you keep from the talk for you later, or what are those notes?
These yellow notes are going to become a book. One day.
Yeah, bro, I love it. I'm here for it.
I don't know.
I love it, bro. I'm here for it. Nice. I like that a lot. What is it going to be called?
It'll be a subsidiary of Double T Enterprises.
Man, I got a book coming out. I got a book deal out of Washington, and I'm writing it, and it's not necessarily a recipe book, but it is the Arab world through barbecue and being the outsider and the outlier. And it's the title of the book is Third Culture Barbecue.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I could do this for another 3 hours.
I know.
And, when we were starting, you were saying that I don't know if there's going to be anything that anyone can learn from this.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what I learned just to make it easier. I like this idea of when you find your calling, step into it.
Yeah.
And finding, it's almost our obligation as humans to find our radio station
100%.
if we want to live life fully. Everything is personal, so be personable is what I wrote down. We actually make a choice on how we prioritize our mental, physical, and time bandwidth. If bandwidth is a dead word, we're bringing it back.
Yeah.
This idea of taking baby steps in moments of crisis, just one foot in front of the other.
Not even moments of crisis, just
life.
One step. It doesn't even need to be a baby step. You could go till you could do the splits, but just that step in front of you. Not the 100 steps down the road, the bridge is broken. Oh, how am I going to fix it? Can I jump that far? You don't know. Just the step in front of you. When you get to the bridge, you'll find from the 1,000 steps that you've taken before that running across this bridge and jumping from the time that you did it before will get you across. But you haven't, you wouldn't have figured that out until you've done your 1,000 steps. So
100%.
just one step.
100%. And this idea of just being an observer, I have never thought of that. Don't be a consumer, be an observer.
100%.
You'll learn something every day. It's been a ton of fun.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure, sir.
And I got nothing but love for you, my man.
Man, since the 90s.
Habibi.
Since the 90s. Thank you for having me.